Hi everyone, welcome to a chat with Tonic. We are talking today with Geordie from Tonic Music about what they do and all the wonderful stuff that's come about sadly as the result of the fundraiser that we did for Carol, as you all know. Thank you very much for your help with that. But just wanted to fill you in a bit more really on what Tonic do and the development of that. So yeah, welcome Geordie. How's it going?
Thank you.
Just wanted to kind of fill the guys in a bit more about what you do, your role within Tonic, really, and what sort of stuff you do on a day to day.
Yeah, so I'm Geordie. I'm the programs lead at Tonic Music. So my role is to design, manage, and review the mental health programs that we run at the charity. So I've been doing that now for 4 years, just celebrating my fourth anniversary at the charity, which is great.
Congrats.
Yeah, and it's really kind of on both a day-to-day operations and a strategic basis. So yeah, very great to be part of such an amazing team.
Nice. And how's Tonic like? What's Tonic come from? With the GFF, we've kind of grown over 5 years of friends telling friends about it and communities coming together and stuff. Well, how did Tonic sort of form and what's who are the people involved with it?
Yeah, so Tonic Music was founded in 2012 by Steph Langan, who is still our CEO. So it's grown over the years from a non-profit to a local charity to a national charity. But what's quite nice is that with that growth, we've not lost that community aspect. So there's a lot of the team have been part of Tonic Music now for several years. We have volunteers that have been involved with Tonic Music since day one. Some of us have like family involved as volunteers as well. As a national charity, we're proud that we keep that community aspect as well.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds really cool. And from some of the stuff I've seen online as well, there's a lot of that care for the community in terms of the whole community. As you say, it's not just about festival goers and people that have kind of fallen on times or want to be musicians. It's about musicians as well. What are the sort of different things that you offer? How does the advice differ? What packages are what is it that you do for the two?
Yeah, so the official aim of Tonic Music is to establish good mental health within music communities, and a lot of people ask, what do we mean by music communities? So, I guess to sort of bring in a picture, if you imagine a music festival looking above, and you can see all the different people there, whether they're attendees, whether they're people backstage, people on stage, we provide tailored mental health support to everyone within that image who is age 18 years or over. So on the Tonic Rider program, we provide mental health support to the music industry. So that's anyone who works in music, whether that's musicians, roadies or crew, festival venue staff, agents or managers, anyone who professionally engages in music. And we're proud to not have an economic criteria with that. So it's not about how much money someone earns from music, it's just about whether they work in music. So that means we're really supporting people on the grassroots level, people doing a pub circuit, that's what we're about. And also within Tonic Rider we have different strands, one of which is Tonic Futures, which provides mental health support to 18 to 25-year-olds who work in music. So that's Tonic Rider. So that's been around now for 4 years. And then the sibling program of Tonic Rider is Never Mind the Stigma. So Never Mind the Stigma provides mental health support to music fans and hobbyist musicians. So essentially anyone who recreationally engages in music. But unlike some kind of music workshop-based initiatives, we don't run music workshops. We actually provide sessions that are tailored to music fans. So we run album clubs where it's about you being a listener to music and reflecting upon mental health in that aspect.
That sounds really cool. And again, it's that kind of bringing together of conversations around something, to kind of normalise it, I suppose, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And sharing.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. And do you notice, like, with saying that you're backstage and front stage, obviously there's very different things that people will come to you with. What sort of things do you notice the differences between artists coming to you with certain issues and then what stuff the festival goers come to you with?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So both groups of people, so backstage, front of house, professional, recreational, there's similar needs. So it's a bit like a kind of Venn diagram where there's bits in the middle where there's similar needs, of course.
Yeah.
And that's the general stuff like anxiety, depression, stress, burnout. And then there's a kind of the more individual needs based on who they are. So with people in the music industry, we know, burnout is a massive thing due to the work-life balance, the financial insecurity, when's next payment coming in. Then delving down a little bit deeper, for artists, performance anxiety comes into place. For roadies and crew, there's the touring stress, the physical pressures as well. Let's not forget that. So it's those kind of aspects. And it's quite interesting because we're always learning new things. So one of the new things that's coming through, particularly in the music industry now, is kind of sort of digital burnout and the pressures of social media. And this is something that's changing year on year, where originally you had kind of standard social media sites. Now it's about putting content out there, video content. So that can be some of the pressures that can be experienced, particularly young artists, but not just young artists exclusively. And, we have to remember what's going on in the industry as a whole. So like venues closing down, festivals closing, the impact of Brexit on touring, the impact on the cost of living crisis, the impact of streaming and the sort of the economic impact that has on artists. So all of these big key issues within the industry, abuse in the music industry as well, these key issues, they all have an effect upon mental health. They all contribute to that occupational stress, the industry pressures that we talk about. On the flip side, with music fans, it's quite interesting because in a way, kind of grouping music fans is a little bit kind of like the general public, but with a focus on music.
Yeah.
I guess the point, and never mind the stigma, is to address the mental health barriers people experience to participate in music recreationally. So we're talking about gig anxiety. So people who experience social anxiety or crowd anxiety at gigs, they want to go to gigs, but it's a barrier. So that's why we do a gig anxiety workshop. The same to some extent with festivals and being able to look after yourself at festivals. That's why we do a festival survival workshop. In terms as well, isolation, because for a lot of people, they can be a music fan, but they may go to gigs on their own, or they may not really have anyone who has similar interest in music. So the album clubs bring together people to talk about the music they love, and the album clubs themselves are genre-based. So if you're a rock fan, a punk fan, indie, ska, you can go to these album clubs and kind of have a place to talk about the love of the different albums.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of the sort of the differences there. The other thing as well, like I said, with music fans is not everyone who's a music fan wants to play music. So that's why we do this program, not as the kind of music workshop thing. But it also as well with music, it's one of those interests we don't really seem to have kind of structural things in society for people to attend. So, regularly in towns and villages you'll see book clubs. You won't really see album clubs. And obviously with venues closing down and places where people can engage in music are closing down, that's why it's important at this time to bring the programme and to have people come together in this way.
It's an interesting way to look at it. You're right with the book clubs thing, and a lot of music events, performances, everything is commercially driven, isn't it? So there isn't usually the space for those conversations. And when you get there, it's, "You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Okay, cool." And those conversations happen sort of on the side or apart from the event. The event is sort of a gathering. So it's interesting to kind of, outside of the non-commercial aspects of that, to discuss specific things just within the genre. When you said something earlier about artist anxiety of socials, that was a huge thing, obviously, during COVID. And part of, in the GFF, what we see is artists not knowing how to do a social post, but seeing others doing it really well. And that same anxiety is across everything. It's whether people are technically good at one thing versus another thing. And I have a thing that I say to people: if you're born to be a 10-meter diver, there's no need to try and be a 100-meter runner. Like there's a difference in what you can do, right? And sort of shaking off that anxiety of, I don't have to do these things, or I can do it my own way. That sort of very practical way of coming to terms with what you're good at, basically, and making yourself feel better because of that. But I guess online, was a huge reason for all of us coming together during COVID at the start of Twitch, and that's where a lot of people who weren't performing came onto Twitch. We're starting to come to have advice on how to manage channels and things like that. What sort of obviously during COVID, you must have had performers and artists that were coming to you for all sorts of things. But what was the key change, I guess, for you guys in COVID? You know, how did you adapt? What sort of stuff did you notice?
So COVID coincided with the transition of Tonic Music from a local charity to a national charity, which actually, to be honest, to kind of moving to online video call based work, you know, kind of pushed that even further. So when the pandemic happened, when lockdown occurred, we had to move our services online through video call groups. When we were running music workshops at the time, that was very difficult to do, and a lot of the time we had to pause them. You know, particularly when we had a choir, for example, you can't do a choir over Zoom. It's just not going to happen. So originally the idea for Tonic Rider was to have in-person services, but actually what we realised is doing the peer groups online and the workshops online, we were able to bring together people across the UK. And actually, not everyone's based in London, in Manchester, in a major city where a lot of these services used to take place. They are living in villages where they would have to travel a long way. So, you know, they are going on tour where they need to access services while on a tour bus or while, you know, before doing sound check. So that was quite an interesting thing how that worked. In terms of the participants, at the time of COVID, we were working a lot, you know, it's when we first properly started working with people in the music industry. You can kind of see this sort of time frame of the different kind of reactions to the pandemic. So when we're in lockdown, there's obviously the isolation aspect, that kind of missing performing, missing socialising, not, you know, that kind of not sure what was going to go on, that, you know, lack of what's going to happen in the future. So you had all these fears. And then 2021 is when lockdown lifted and things gradually went back to normal. And then actually what you tended to see was difficulties in socialising, performance anxiety. A lot of artists who'd never experienced performance anxiety suddenly experienced performance anxiety because they hadn't performed for 18 months. There was kind of fears around being in a space with multiple people, fears around, you know, catching COVID. And then you kind of see that, and then you kind of see the next step was kind of the economic impact of the pandemic as well. So then the kind of indirect impact that the pandemic's had, you like, on venues, on festivals, you know, generally on labels, for example, as well. So it's quite interesting, those kind of 3 steps that you kind of see with the pandemic. So even though we're 5 years since the pandemic started, we're still seeing the ripple effect, the negative ripple effect of what occurred.
Yeah, and I think people are still feeling it, you know, and we will for generations. There'll come a point where people of a certain age, I shouldn't say our age, we're totally different ages, that'll always be, you know, remembered as the time when we all came online. And it's quite interesting for me, you know, having seen music industry go through in 2000 to 2005, similar kind of evolution, if you like, you know, and just interesting for me in this time to see how civilizations were addressed, to go, actually, there is a different way of doing things. You know, it's not obviously ideal to receive personal advice and help, but it certainly was a real eye-opener for a lot of people, I think, to go, oh, actually, we can be a different way, and we can sort of cope with some of that in a different way, which was really interesting to me.
Yeah, like I said, realising that we can provide services online, I think was the key thing. So at Tonic, there's 4 levels of mental health support we provide. So the therapy sessions, peer groups, skills workshops and training courses. And we were able to provide all 4 of those levels online via video call software. So it makes it a lot more accessible. That means it's a lot more cost effective for people who don't have to pay for petrol or bus or train. It's a lot more kind of time effective because, you know, it takes out the travel time and all of that aspects as well for them. And also being in a comfortable place, so whether they do that from home, whether they go and do it from work or on tour. And that's quite a powerful thing, really, that I seem to think before COVID we just didn't ever really consider that approach to mental health support. So yeah, it's certainly COVID shaped how we deliver the programs.
That's really interesting, and I guess that's gonna, it's lessons learned as well for when you are giving real life advice, when you are face to face with people. There's other things you can understand about that whole mix and places to send them, for support as well, I guess. There's a lot coming up this year, obviously. We are going to be attending Shindig Festival. That's going to be really cool. And what would be nice to talk about, I think, is a little bit about what you offer on site at a festival. So if somebody, sees you, what can they expect from the interaction? What's the sort of, let's take away some of the process so that people can understand more about that journey. What would they go through and who would they see there, and what's the interaction that happens on the ground?
So yeah, alongside the 2 mental health programs we also provide mental health lounges at festivals across the UK and outdoor events, which coincides with us providing mental health stands at gigs as well. With the mental health lounges, we're fairly unique in that we provide mental health lounges both front of house for attendees and also backstage for artist, crew and event staff. Now these mental health lounges are staffed by mental health professionals, all of whom have experience working in music in different capacities, which is fairly unique in that regard. So these are psychotherapists, counsellors, mental health nurses, and with the mental health lounges, they're kind of that step before welfare. So they're a preventative measure to what we do, because welfare is for, crisis, for immediate support. Sometimes people don't always need that immediate support. Sometimes people might not feel comfortable seeking that support. So our mental health lounges are kitted out a bit like a music studio in a way. Like we've got sofas and we've got like a table that's made from a drum. We've got some really nice rugs, and it looks really calm environment. For people to come along, they can kind of sit, spend some time just with themselves if they want to, get away from the crowd, talk to one of our mental health team, go through some grounding techniques, take home some mental health resources. So it's that preventative approach before welfare. And what's the strength of what we do is because we provide the mental health support all year round on the online programs, anyone that comes in the lounge, there's obviously an opportunity for them to seek further support post-festival, which sometimes you don't see with some elements of welfare. So there's that kind of strength there as well. So we have a lot of people come to the front of house mental health lounge, and they'll go on to Never Mind the Stigma programme. And actually the festivals we do, we see the same people. They'll come in, they'll just have a check-in, just say, look, I knew you were going to be here. I knew you were here last year, so just wanted to come and say hello. People will come over, go, I knew to head over to the Tonic Music Lounge if I was feeling a bit panicky in the crowd. And the same with backstage, where we're there for the festival staff all weekend, for any artists that come in for their period when they're pre-performance or even post-performance. So it works out really, really well in terms of that, and just gives, I guess the most indirect strength is people just knowing that we're there as a presence as well, is kind of sort of reassuring, even if you don't use our services during that particular weekend. Just knowing there's a Tonic Music Lounge there for if needed is a real positive.
That sounds really, that does sound really cool, and there's a lot of things I believe in that where it comes to recognising an issue, and not necessarily, providing advice on this is how to deal with depression once you've hit it. That's great, but there's also a huge ground there of people that are just not quite sure if it's a problem or if it. It's really nice to be able to offer that sort of open door of let's just have a chat about it, really.
And that's the thing with the mental health programs. So the mental health programs are not just for people who are experiencing poor mental health or mental ill health. It's for anyone along the spectrum of mental health. All participants who register have a one-to-one consultation appointment, so it allows us to identify whether that person needs to be referred to NHS support, like crisis support, secondary mental health care, or even to receive assessment and diagnosis. But it allows that kind of to identify the additional needs, the unmet needs, and be able to ensure that people go onto the programs and participate in the things that's going to benefit them the most. A lot of people will think our services are it's just for people who are experiencing poor mental health, but the album club's open to people who, at the moment, they're experiencing good mental health and they want to kind of have it as a preventative measure, just use it as a kind of way to talk to people about music and form connections, because that in itself is preventative, because you're forming connections, reducing isolation.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of we've seen from your from your website as well, that there's a lot of gigs and activities that you've got coming up, and it's going to be really cool to talk to you again about some of that. We'd love to get you on another call and have a chat about some of that stuff as we go through 2025, 26 and beyond as well. I think there's a lot of good stuff to come. What of all of the events that you work on, not what you're looking forward to, because I know that would be favouritism, but what's the sort of one of your most memorable events that you've done? Do you reckon? What have you worked on that really jumps out?
I think for me, the first event I did with Tonic Music was the Coventry Home Sessions. So this was the event in Coventry City Centre, organised by our founding patron Terry Hall from the Specials. So it's memorable for me because of that being that first event, but it was fantastic because we loved Coventry because of the connection to Terry. It enabled us to speak to so many wonderful people. We actually that's when we first met the Libertines, actually, was at that event, and they do a lot of work with us now. So that was memorable. It was in the cathedral ruins as well, so the site was really special. So that one always sticks out for me in particular, but we've done so many amazing events. I mean every year we do Victoria's Festival. For me, locally, we've done Brighton the Corners Festival in Ipswich and Sounds Good Festival in Chelmsford. So that they were quite positive ones for me as well because of the local connection.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful job, and it's amazing to be involved. And of course, Mucky Weekender is another one that is a real positive because that's related to our patron Barry Ashworth from Dub Pistols. So that's always quite a nice one to end the summer season with, because it means we get to see old friends as well. So that's always a great one to do. But it's
love Barry.
Summers are always very busy, but it's always very positive experience and a nice way to see the world and all the different fields the UK has to offer. But, yeah.
And there's plenty of them out there. I intend to go and explore some today up here in North Wales. It's looking
without a doubt. And hopefully it'll be nice summer weather-wise. I mean, it's looking good at the moment, isn't it?
If we remove the word "hopefully" from that statement, it's going
to happen.
That's how we get it.
It will be, even if it's a wet festival, it's still always a good time, isn't it?
All good fun, exactly. It's all about the expectation, isn't it, really? Nice. Well, yeah, we look forward to catching up with you again. We'll definitely be good to have you on and explore some more stuff that you're up to over this summer. So, yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.